On Monday, Trump announces his federal takeover of D.C. His announcement lasted about an hour and 15 minutes, but here's an edited version that cuts out all of his ramblings.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth. Much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. These are different cities throughout the world. Red is okay. The red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad is, we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that? I don't think so. D.C., 41 per 100,000, number one that we can find anywhere in the world. Other cities are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that. Is that where you want to live? The reporters of the world? Juvenile offenders and crimes against persons, as they say. It's getting worse. Not getting better, it's getting worse. And we had a recent indication. There was a story about a man who was just left. He quit because he was asked to do phony numbers on crime. And we're going to look into that. I think Pam is going to be looking into that. But he was asked by the city, I guess, that we don't want to show the real numbers. Let me do numbers so it looks like it's going down. Not going down. And under Biden, it was a disaster. And nobody did anything about it. We're going to do things about it like you wouldn't believe. This issue directly impacts the functioning of the federal government and is a threat to America, really. It's a threat to our country. We have other cities also that are bad, very bad. You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say. And we're getting rid of the slums, too. We have slums here. We're getting rid of them. I know it's not politically correct. You'll say, oh, so terrible. No, we're getting rid of the slums where they live. This dire public safety crisis stems directly from the abject failures of the city's local leadership. The radical left city council adopted no cash bail. By the way, every place in the country where you have no cash bail is a disaster. That's what started the problem in New York, and they don't change it. They don't want to change it. That's what started it in Chicago. I mean, bad politicians started it, bad leadership started it, but that was the one thing that's central, no cash bail. Somebody murders somebody and they're out on no cash bail before the day is out. We're going to end that in Chicago. We're going to change the statute. I spoke with Pam and Todd and everybody. We're going to change the statute, and I'm going to have to get the Republicans to vote because the Democrats are weak on crime. Totally weak on crime. I think we have to get rid of sanctuary cities as quickly as possible. We're going to do it, too. We have to, because it's sanctuary for criminals. What you need is rules and regulations, and you need the right people to implement them. And we have the right people here, that I can tell you. You know, a lot of nations, they don't have anything like that. They got some police, and they're rough police. They don't have DEA, ATF, FBI, Park Police, U.S. Marshal Service, Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. They got some police, but they're rough police, and they do their job. They don't have crime. We're not going to have crime either. Today, we're formally declaring a public safety emergency. This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. So today, we're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia. And Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor, our new DEA administrator, who's one of the top in the country. This city will no longer be a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals. We will have full, seamless, integrated cooperation at all levels of law enforcement, and we'll deploy officers across the district with an overwhelming presence. You'll have more police, and you'll be so happy, because you'll be safe. When you walk down the street, you're going to see police, or you're going to see FBI agents. We're going to have a lot of agents on the street. You're going to have a lot of, essentially, military, and we will bring in the military if it's needed. By the way, they'll immediately begin massive enforcement operations targeting known gangs, drug dealers, and criminal networks to get them the hell off the street, maybe get them out of the country, because a lot of them came into our country illegally. They shouldn't have been allowed in. They come from Venezuela. They come from all over the world. We're going to get them the hell out. But some of these people, a lot of them, are homegrown criminals. And these are bad people. These are rough people. We're going to be removing homeless encampments from all over our parks, our beautiful, beautiful parks, which now a lot of people can't walk on. They're very dirty, we got a lot of problems. But we've already started that. We're moving the encampments away, trying to take care of people. The Metropolitan Police Department and the federal authorities will be supported in the effort, a really big effort, the 800 DC National Guardsmen that we'll put on, and much more if necessary, much more. But if necessary, we're going to move service members directly to joining the Guardsmen, and that'll take place very rapidly, and that'll be done in conjunction with Pam and with Pete and everybody else. Just to conclude, Washington, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest, most beautiful places anywhere in the world. It was years ago. We had one problem that was a pretty big problem. The radical left got out of control, and they started trying to rip down statues. And I said, let's go pass a law real fast. We're going to do it real fast, but we were blocked by the Democrats, who do not want safety. And I found an old statute, very old, early 1900s, that said if you so much as touch or even think about destroying a statue or a monument in Washington, D.C., you go to jail for 10 years with no probation, no anything. In other words, slightly different than we have today. Today we have cashless bail. If our capital's dirty, our whole country is dirty, and they don't respect us. So
The next day, Trump orders a review of the Smithsonian Museum's exhibitions to align with his interpretation of American history. In a letter to the Smithsonian, the White House said, this initiative aims to ensure alignment with the president's executive order in March to celebrate American exceptionalism, remove divisive or partisan narratives, and restore confidence in our shared cultural institutions. The museums must submit drafts of its exhibits within the next 30 days to the White House. Then they must make corrective action of the administration's recommended changes within 120 days. Then on Wednesday, we learned that Trump told Norway's finance minister that he wanted the Nobel Peace Prize, just like he told Israel's prime minister back in February. Norway's finance minister said he was walking down the street. Then Trump called to discuss tariffs and that he wanted the prize. Several White House officials were on the call, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Rep Jamieson Greer. The Nobel Peace Prize has only been given to 4 other U.S. presidents: Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, Jimmy Carter, and Barack Obama. The next day, California Governor Gavin Newsom said his state will hold a November 4th special election to seek approval of redrawn districts to give Democrats 5 more seats in the House. This move is in direct response to Trump, who first started pushing Texas to do the same thing. Here's an excerpt from his speech.
We're here because Donald Trump, on January 6th, tried to light democracy on fire, tried to wreck this country, tried to steal an election, as Alex just said, by trying to dial in for 11, almost 12,000 votes. And here we are, in open and plain sight, before one vote is cast in the 2026 midterm election. And here he is once again trying to rig the system. He doesn't play by a different set of rules. He doesn't believe in the rules. And as a consequence, we need to disabuse ourselves of the way things have been done. It's not good enough to just hold hands, have a candlelight vigil, and talk about the way the world should be. We have got to recognize the cards that have been dealt. And we have got to meet fire with fire. And we've got to be held to a higher level of accountability. So that's what this is about. It's not complicated. We're doing this in reaction to a president of the United States that called a sitting governor of the state of Texas and said, "Find me 5 seats." We're doing it in reaction to that act. We're doing it mindful of our higher angels and better angels. We're doing it mindful that we want to model better behavior, as we've been doing for 15 years in the state of California with our independent redistricting commission. But we cannot unilaterally disarm. We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear. We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear district by district all across this country, not just in Texas, but in Missouri, where J.D. Vance went just a week ago, in Indiana, in places like Ohio, in places like Florida. We need to stand up, not just California. Other blue states need to stand up. We need to be firm in our resolve. We need to put back. So we're here in that light. And I'm grateful to have remarkable partners in the legislature. It's a tall task. We're asking them for 2/3 of a legislative consent, but this is the difference. This is the difference between what's happening in Texas and what's happening here in California. We didn't receive a phone call from the President of the United States to then quietly go in the back room and start drawing maps and legislatively try to jam them through against the consent of the people. We're doing precisely the opposite. We're working through a very transparent, temporary, and public process. We're putting the maps on the ballot, and we're giving the power to the people. This will be the first redistricting that's ever done that. That's the difference. We tried to raise the standards, and these guys are not playing by any set of rules.
Then on Friday, Trump met with Putin in Alaska. But there was no peace deal to end the war in Ukraine, despite Trump saying he could end the war on the first day in office. Instead of a deal, Trump handed Putin a long-sought recognition on the world stage after years of Western efforts to make Putin a pariah over starting the war. And Trump's vision of ending the war seems to be lining up with Putin's, which means Putin gets to keep parts of Ukraine's territory, Ukraine cannot join NATO, and Ukraine falls under Russia's orbit. In other words, for Trump to say he ended the Ukraine-Russian war, he must reward Putin for invading Ukraine. The next day, 3 Republican-led states, West Virginia, South Carolina, and Ohio, plan to send hundreds of National Guard troops to Washington. This increased police force is in response to protests popping up in D.C. against Trump's federal takeover of D.C. earlier in the week, which protesters see as federal overreach because crime is lower now than it was during Trump's first term. Finally, on Sunday, European leaders plan to join Zelenskyy for his Monday meeting with Trump to discuss the Ukraine-Russian war. Their goal is to ensure the meeting goes better than the last one on February 28th, when Trump berated Zelenskyy This show of support from the EU will hopefully prevent Ukraine from being railroaded into a bad peace deal with Trump and Russia.